I never thought I'd see the day when I'd feel completely invisible in my own house. Not like ignored invisible, more like I'd been replaced by some phantom that no one bothered to acknowledge. It started small, the way these things do, like a whisper you tell yourself isn't real. My wife, Emily, started coming home later, saying she was just working late, always brushing past me with that practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. I believed her. I wanted to. It wasn't until I found the receipt that I realized how badly I'd underestimated her. It was sitting on the kitchen counter like a casual insult. 2 tickets for a weekend getaway at a cabin neither of us had planned for. Dated for the previous weekend. She hadn't mentioned a thing. Not a word. I stared at that paper like it was a confession written in fire, but I told myself it couldn't mean anything. She loved me, or at least, that's what I kept repeating to drown out the growing pit in my stomach. Then, last night, she said it. The words that would ruin me in ways I didn't think were possible. You're going to be a father again. She smiled, holding her stomach, her hand trembling ever so slightly. I froze, my mind catching on fire, because I hadn't touched her in months. I hadn't even kissed her in weeks. I could count the nights of intimacy on one hand, and that hand was shaking, strange. I said, my voice quieter than I wanted, colder than I intended. I haven't touched you in months. Her smile faltered for the first time in years. Her eyes darted away, searching for some lie she could cling to, but I didn't give her time. I had been waiting for this moment, the one where the truth spilled out like acid. Then how? I whispered, not really wanting an answer because I already knew. My heart sank, hammering in my chest like it was trying to escape. She didn't say a word. She just looked at me with a kind of fragile guilt that made my stomach twist. Then she left the room, slamming the door softly enough not to wake our son, but loud enough to echo through the empty spaces of my home, and my trust. I stayed there, in the kitchen, staring at the counter, at the mundane objects that suddenly felt like evidence. A coffee mug she hadn't cleaned, a notebook left open to some nonsense doodle, a pen she used to write my name but had stopped. Everything screamed betrayal. Every quiet corner of our house was a monument to lies I had been too naive to see. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. The questions kept circling my mind like vultures. Who? When? How long? Was it just this once, or had it been months? I tried to remember signs, moments when she laughed a little too long at her phone, when she came home smelling of someone else's cologne, when I caught her wiping something off her lips as if she'd been tasting secrets. I'd ignored them all, calling myself paranoid, afraid of facing a truth I couldn't handle. By morning, I knew what I had to do. I started looking for evidence, not because I wanted to confront her immediately, but because I needed proof, something tangible, something undeniable. I wasn't going to destroy myself with assumptions. I had to know, and I needed to see it with my own eyes. I found her phone first. Left carelessly on the nightstand. A message preview popped up. Can't wait to see you tonight. Last night was amazing. And just like that, the world tilted. My hands shook as I scrolled, seeing a conversation that stretched back for months, every word a dagger. Names, dates, laughter, plans, all the little secrets she had kept from me while pretending to live a life with me. And then I saw it, photos. Her and him. Smiling, kissing, laughing like they were the only people in the world. My stomach turned over, bile rising in my throat. I wanted to throw up, to scream, to disappear. But I didn't. I just stared, unable to look away, as if acknowledging it fully would somehow make it real. But it was already real. It had been real for months, and I had been blind. When she walked in, coffee in hand, humming like nothing was wrong, I felt a cold, sharp clarity. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a complete erasure of everything we had built together. Every memory, every promise, every quiet evening of laughter, it was all gone, overwritten by someone else's shadow in our home. She looked at me, trying to gauge my reaction, but I wasn't the man I used to be. I was something new, something broken, but aware. I didn't ask her to explain. I didn't demand answers. I just said, flatly, we need to talk. Now. She nodded, as if she had been waiting for this too, as if part of her had known the walls would eventually crumble. And in that moment, as she sat across from me at the kitchen table, the first words she whispered were not apologies. They were excuses, but I wasn't listening anymore. I was remembering. Every small moment of betrayal flashed in my mind, every lie that had felt inconsequential suddenly became monumental. And I realized something terrifying. I didn't just lose my wife to someone else. I lost the life I thought I knew, the safety I thought I had. And I wasn't sure if I would ever find my way back from that. For the next few days, I moved through the house like a ghost, half present, half expecting her to vanish like she had all these months. Every glance at her felt like a test I was doomed to fail. I watched her make breakfast for our son, smile at him with the warmth I remembered, and I realized how cruel it was, how she could compartmentalize love for our child while betraying me with someone else. I wanted to scream, to shake her until she admitted the truth, but instead, I watched. I cataloged everything. I found more messages, hidden ones this time, in apps she thought I didn't check. She wasn't sloppy, she was meticulous, careful. Planning meetings, excuses, lies layered over lies like some twisted art. There was a photo she had sent him at my birthday dinner, a smile plastered on her face, holding a wine glass, looking into a camera that wasn't mine. That one image broke something inside me. I had celebrated my life, my marriage, not knowing it was already dead. That night, I couldn't sleep. I wandered into our bedroom, where the scent of him lingered faintly, a ghost I couldn't chase away. I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands gripping the sheets, trying to remember when things had gone wrong. Was it the distance, the exhaustion, the unspoken resentment? Or had she never loved me fully? The question didn't have an answer. Some betrayals aren't about why, they're about survival, and hers didn't include me. The confrontation came unexpectedly. I wasn't ready, and maybe that's why it hit like a hammer. I had been staring at our living room window, staring at the street below, when the door clicked shut. She was home early. I didn't turn to greet her. My silence was deliberate, lethal. She tried to slip past me, "Hey, honey," and I cut her off, "No. Sit down." My voice wasn't raised, but it carried a weight that made her falter. The air between us thickened, heavy with unspoken accusations. I held up her phone. "These are your excuses?" I asked. Months of deceit hidden behind smiles and empty words. Her eyes flickered, a storm contained in fragile glass. She started with denials, the same rehearsed lines I'd heard before, but I wasn't listening. I was counting the months, the hours, the countless stolen moments she had spent building a parallel life. "It's not what you think," she whispered. I almost laughed at the absurdity. "Not what I think." I saw the proof. I held the evidence in my hand. Not what I think, what is, and then she cried. I don't mean the quiet tears of regret. I mean the kind that scream, that claw at your own heart with sharp, jagged fingernails. I hated her in that moment. Hated her for making me care, for forcing me to feel this hurt, for corrupting everything I thought was safe. And yet, part of me still loved her, the part that had believed, had trusted, had hoped. We didn't sleep that night. We didn't talk either, really. She cried in one corner of the room, and I stared at the ceiling, counting the cracks, imagining him there instead of me, trying to understand how someone could do this. I kept replaying the words. The images, the laughter, the intimacy she had shared with another man, and every memory twisted into a knife, days turned into weeks. The house felt different, hollowed out, like a museum of our life, curated by betrayal. I moved through it cautiously, avoiding her gaze, avoiding the sun who didn't know the storm that had struck us. And then I started noticing the subtle changes in her. She was careful now, careful not to be caught, careful to hide the tremors of her guilt. But nothing could erase what had already happened. Nothing could undo the months of stolen moments, of whispered lies, of stolen love. I began keeping a journal, not for her, not for anyone. For me. To map out the timeline of betrayal. To hold myself together when every instinct screamed to fall apart. I wrote about the first time I suspected something was wrong, the receipts, the messages, the photos. I wrote about the surreal sense of watching someone I loved turn into a stranger before my eyes. Every entry bled with anger, sorrow, and a lingering question that had no answer. Why her? Why me? One evening, she came into the room, cautious, hesitant. She spoke softly, almost pleading. Can we try to fix this? Her words were hollow, because she hadn't asked me before. She hadn't acknowledged her part in the destruction of everything we shared. I wanted to shout, to tear down the walls of pretense, but I only shook my head. Fix this? Nothing could be fixed in the shadow of deceit, and yet, in the quietest hours of the night, I caught myself wondering if love could survive this. If trust could be rebuilt from ash. It was a question I didn't have the courage to answer, because the answer might destroy me further. Betrayal is a seed that grows in silence, and its roots are tangled too deeply to simply pull out. A week later, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I couldn't walk past her, pretending the house wasn't dripping with secrets, pretending our life wasn't unraveling in slow motion. I followed her one evening when she said she was going for a walk. I didn't even know why, I just needed to see. To witness. And there he was, leaning casually against the corner of a cafe, smiling at her in that way that made my stomach turn. Her laughter, the sound that used to belong only to me, rang out like a knife slicing through my chest. I froze, invisible to them both, watching my life parade past me in broad daylight. The betrayal wasn't hidden this time, it was out in the open, flaunting itself. And yet, she didn't even notice me. She never saw me, not really. I walked home slowly, trying to keep my composure, but inside I was a storm. Every step was a battle, every breath a reminder of the man I used to be and the man I had become. Anger, grief, disbelief, they collided inside me until I could barely think straight. I wanted to confront her, scream, demand the truth, but part of me feared what would happen if I did. What if the confrontation broke me completely? The next day, she tried to talk again, her voice soft, coaxing. Please, can we discuss this calmly? I want to explain. Her eyes were wet, but not from tears. This was fear. Fear of me. Fear of what I had seen, what I had discovered. I wanted to tell her everything I felt, everything I'd seen, everything I'd imagined during sleepless nights. I wanted her to feel the fracture she had caused, but I couldn't. Words weren't enough. Instead, I asked one simple question: how long? Her silence was a confession. She turned away, fiddling with her wedding ring, a gesture that had once symbolized love but now felt like a mocking reminder of what had been broken. Months, she finally admitted. Her voice barely above a whisper. Since last winter. Months. It was worse than I imagined. It wasn't a single mistake, a moment of weakness. It was an ongoing life she built without me, a secret universe where I didn't exist. My hands shook, my vision blurred. I wanted to run, to hide, to disappear into nothingness. But I stayed, because even in my pain, I had to know more. I demanded answers. I needed to know every lie, every stolen moment, every whispered secret. And she told me. The hotel rooms, the dinners, the stolen weekends, the texts that started as just friends and ended in confessions of love for someone else. Every detail was worse than I imagined, worse than the images I had seen. Worse than the questions I had asked myself in the dark. I wanted to hate her. I wanted to leave, to vanish from the life that had been poisoned. But I also wanted to understand. I wanted to dissect the why behind the betrayal, the cracks in our marriage that I had been too blind to see. Love and hate, grief and rage, they all collided inside me until I didn't know who I was anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I walked past the bedroom where she lay, pretending to rest. I thought about leaving, about taking our son and disappearing. I thought about calling him, the other man, and demanding answers. But I didn't. I stayed. And in the quiet of the night, I realized something terrifying. I didn't just feel betrayed, I felt erased. And some erasures leave permanent scars. The days that followed were a delicate dance of appearances. I returned to work, played the part of the oblivious husband, but inside, I was unraveling. Every smile from her felt like a challenge, every casual touch from her felt like a betrayal. I kept imagining him everywhere, in the grocery store, at the playground, in the shadows of our home. The invasion was complete. There was no corner of my life untouched, and then, one morning, she did something that broke me in ways words cannot describe. She kissed me. Not for intimacy. Not for love. But for convenience. A peck on the cheek, quick, perfunctory, like she was trying to remind herself that this was still her life too. I froze. My stomach lurched. I wanted to scream, to spit, to run. But I just stood there, feeling the ghost of intimacy that had been stolen from me. I realized then that betrayal doesn't always come with fireworks or grand revelations. Sometimes, it comes quietly, in moments that seem ordinary, until you recognize the poison in them. And the most insidious part? I still loved her. I still remembered the warmth, the laughter, the life we had once shared. But that love was a trap now, a snare that kept me tethered to something I couldn't reclaim. The breaking point didn't arrive with a scream. It arrived with a whisper I wasn't supposed to hear. Late evening. Our son was asleep. I was in the hallway, halfway to the kitchen, when I heard Emily in the bedroom with the door cracked open. Her voice was low, trembling, the kind of trembling that comes from shame, not sorrow. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up, she whispered into her phone. Silence. No, he hasn't left yet. He's just different. He knows something. I think he knows everything. Another pause, longer this time, and then the words that made my knees go weak. Yes, I still want to be with you. I don't know how to end it with him without destroying everything. Destroying everything. Everything. As if I wasn't already in pieces. As if she still owned the right to decide what everything was. I stood there long enough to hear her soft sniffles, long enough to realize she wasn't talking to him out of guilt or remorse. She was afraid of losing him. I felt something inside me snap, quietly, coldly, like an old branch giving way in winter. I didn't confront her. I didn't storm into the room. I walked outside instead, barefoot, into the cold night air, because I needed oxygen. I needed space. I needed to remember that the world was still bigger than the walls of my collapsing marriage. Out there, under a dim streetlight, I felt like my life was shrinking. Betrayal doesn't just hurt, you become small under it, like your own body can't contain your emotions anymore. Rage simmered beneath my skin, fighting with grief, confusion, disbelief. My breath came out in uneven bursts. I kept thinking about our son, about the home we built, about the promises we made and the ones she broke. I couldn't decide if I wanted her gone forever or if I wanted to wake up and discover this was all a nightmare. The next morning, I acted normal. I spoke calmly. I moved slowly. She noticed. Are you okay? She asked, voice soft, eyes searching my face. I lied. Just tired. She nodded, relieved. Relieved I wasn't confronting her. Relieved she could keep balancing two worlds a little longer. The relief on her face was the cruelest detail of all. I began studying her. Not obsessively, methodically. Like a scientist observing a specimen. Every pattern, every inconsistency, every forced smile. I noticed she kept her phone face down now. She jumped at notifications she used to ignore. She took extra long showers at night, emerging with that tired, guilty softness in her eyes. It became impossible not to imagine him there in every gap of her day. Every minute she wasn't right in front of me. The ghost of the other man grew so large it overshadowed everything. I found myself replaying every moment of our marriage with new eyes. The early years, full of warmth, laughter, shared dreams. The middle years, routine settling in, the slow erosion of intimacy, arguments swept under the rug. It wasn't sudden. It wasn't random. Something had broken long before her betrayal. I just hadn't noticed the cracks because I trusted her. Love had blinded me in the most predictable way. And she had used that blindness to build another life in the shadows. The worst part was the doubt, because once you've been betrayed, reality becomes unstable. I questioned everything. Had she lied about visiting her parents? Had she lied about those girls' nights out? Had she lied even about the small things, like liking my cooking, or missing me, or loving me? I felt like I had lived beside a stranger, a perfectly disguised stranger, who shed her real self only when I wasn't looking. I couldn't tell if the woman sitting across from me at breakfast was my wife or just an actor waiting for her next cue. One night, I woke up and found her missing from the bed. Panic shot through me. I followed the dim glow of her phone screen to the living room, where she sat curled up on the couch, whispering into her phone. I love you, she said softly. The words were like acid. I just need more time. She didn't see me. I watched her for 30 silent seconds until my heartbeat steadied into something dark and unfamiliar. Then I stepped back quietly and returned to bed, because I needed to plan. Reacting emotionally would destroy me. I needed control. I needed clarity. I needed to choose when the end would come, not her. The next morning, I started collecting everything: screenshots, texts, photos, receipts, recordings. Not to destroy her. Not to punish her. I needed the truth organized. I needed proof of the world I'd been living in without knowing it. And part of me, a part one hated, wanted to see if she would ever confess without being confronted. Spoiler, she didn't. She kissed our son, packed his lunch, told me she loved me before leaving for work. Lies, all of it. Delivered with the ease of a woman who had practiced deceit until it became part of her bloodstream. I thought the breaking point had already come. I thought hearing her whisper "I love you" to another man was the deepest wound I could take. I was wrong. The real breaking point came later, in the most mundane moment imaginable. I found a small gift box in her closet. Not hidden, just placed carelessly among her clothes. I opened it. Inside was a silver bracelet with the initials of the other man engraved on the inside. A personal gift. An intimate gift. A gift she had accepted and kept. For him. For their relationship. That was when something inside me didn't just break, it disintegrated. It turned into dust. She wasn't confused. She wasn't torn. She wasn't a victim of circumstance or loneliness. She was in love with him. Fully. Completely. And I was the obstacle standing in the way of her new life. I sat on the floor, holding that bracelet, realizing the truth so brutally clear it made my vision blur. She had already chosen him. She had chosen him months ago. She was only waiting for the right moment to say the words that would shatter our home. And until then, she was content to let me live in the ruins without knowing it. I didn't confront her that night. I didn't scream, didn't throw the bracelet at her feet, didn't ask the questions whose answers were already etched into my bones. I waited. Not because I wanted revenge, because something inside me insisted that the truth needed to come from her mouth, not from my discoveries. I needed to hear her say it. I needed the final blow to be honest. Not silent. And so I waited. The next evening, after our son fell asleep, I told her we needed to talk. My voice was steady in a way that frightened even me. She froze, sensing something was different. For months, she had been terrified of this moment, and now it was here. She sat across from me at the table, her hands trembling slightly, her eyes darting between mine and the surface of the table as if searching for an escape route. I placed the bracelet in front of her. Just set it down gently. Her face drained of color. She didn't touch it. She didn't move. She just stared, stunned, as if reality had suddenly sharpened into a blade pressed against her skin. "Tell me who he is," I said quietly. She swallowed, her jaw tightening. "It's not, tell me who he is." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. Something about my calmness terrified her more than any rage ever could. She broke. Completely. Her face crumpled as she whispered a name I'd never heard before. A coworker. Someone she had met last year. Someone she never expected this to happen with. I almost laughed at the predictability of it, at the way she said it like she was the victim of an accident she somehow tripped into. I asked the questions one by one, and she answered them with the soft, strangled voice of someone who has finally run out of lies. How long it had been happening. How often they met. Whether she loved him. She hesitated at that last one, eyes flicking away from mine. And that hesitation was my answer. I didn't need her to say it. Silence, in betrayal, is louder than any truth. But then she did say it. Barely audible. I think I do. My heart didn't break this time. It didn't crack or shatter. It simply stopped being what it was. Something inside me shut down, cold and calm. I realized in that moment that I wasn't fighting for my marriage. I was fighting for the illusion of what it used to be. And illusions aren't worth saving. She tried to explain, her words stumbling over themselves, weaving a narrative about loneliness, disconnect, emotional distance, all the cliches people use to justify choosing someone else over communication. I let her speak because I needed to hear it all, every excuse, every justification, every twisted attempt at painting her betrayal as the product of mutual failure instead of conscious choice. When she finished, tears streaming down her cheeks, she whispered, "I didn't want to hurt you." Something inside me snapped at the absurdity. I leaned forward, my voice a quiet blade. "You didn't want to hurt me, but you did it for almost a year. You didn't want to hurt me. But you lied to my face every day. You didn't want to hurt me, but you told another man you loved him. You didn't want to hurt me. But here we are." She broke again, sobbing into her hands, but I felt nothing. Not anger. Not pity. Just emptiness. A numb clarity. I told her I would not stay in a marriage where I was a placeholder, a background character in my own life. She begged. Begged in a way I had never seen before, desperation spilling out of her in shaking breaths. She clung to my hands, to my arms, to anything she could reach, as if physical touch could rewrite the past year. "Please," she whispered over and over. "I can fix this. I'll end it. I'll do anything. Please don't give up on us." But I knew the truth. The second someone else's name becomes a whisper of love on your spouse's lips, the marriage is already dead. She could bury it, hide it, deny it, but the corpse was already rotting between us. I stood up. She followed, pleading, reaching for me. I stepped back. For the first time in months, she truly saw me. Not the husband she manipulated, not the man she lied to, but the person she had finally destroyed. And the horror on her face told me she realized it too late. I walked into the hallway, toward the guest room where I had been sleeping on and off. She asked through tears, "Is this it? Are you leaving me?" I paused, my hand on the doorframe. "No," I said. "You left me first." And then I closed the door. Not loudly. Not angrily. With the quiet finality of a chapter ending. But the story wasn't over yet, not even close. Because the fallout was still coming. And fallouts are always worse than the impact. The morning after the confrontation was the quietest morning of my life. Not peaceful, hollow. The kind of quiet that settles after a building collapses, when the dust hangs in the air and nothing feels real yet. Emily didn't sleep. I heard her pacing the hallway until sunrise. Pausing at my door every so often as if she was debating whether to knock. She never did. The silence between us grew into a physical presence, something thick and suffocating that followed me into every room. When our son woke up, she tried to act normal, pasting on that brittle smile she always used when she wanted to hide something. I watched her kneel beside him, her voice soft, her hands trembling as she brushed his hair back. I felt a bitter twist in my chest. She was still a mother, still gentle with him. Her betrayal didn't erase that. But it made her unfamiliar to me, a stranger wearing the face of the woman I once loved. As soon as he was dropped off at school, the facade shattered. She cornered me in the kitchen, her face red from crying. "Please," she whispered, "we can fix this. We can go to counseling." I ended it. I swear I ended it this morning. I stared at her. "You didn't end it because you wanted to," I said. "You ended it because you got caught." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "It doesn't matter why. It's over." "Nothing is over," I said quietly. "It doesn't work like that." She tried to argue, but I walked past her. Every word she said was white noise now. I didn't trust her voice. I didn't trust her promises. I didn't trust anything that came out of her mouth. And trust is the foundation of a marriage. Once it's gone, the whole house collapses. I took the day off work and spent hours in the guest room, organizing everything. Every screenshot. Every message. Every timestamp. Every lie. Not because I wanted revenge, because I needed a clear record of my reality. She knocked a few times, softly. I ignored it. Eventually she stopped. By late afternoon, I realized something inevitable. I had to talk to him. Not to scream. Not to fight. Not to threaten. I needed to look the man who helped destroy my life in the eyes and see what kind of person he was. I needed closure, even if it was ugly. I didn't tell Emily. I didn't explain. I simply left. I found him easily. His social media was practically a catalog of his life, smiling in every picture like a man who thought he was invincible. When I reached the building where he worked, I felt strangely calm. No rage. No shaking. Just an icy clarity. I asked the receptionist for him by name. When he walked out and saw me, the color drained from his face instantly. He knew. His eyes darted around, looking for an escape. He found none. "We need to talk," I said. He swallowed. "Look, man, not here." He hesitated, then nodded. We walked outside, around the corner of the building, near the parking lot. He kept glancing at the ground like a guilty teenager. "I ended it," he said immediately. "She told me this morning." He said it like it was supposed to make me feel better, like confessing made him holy. I didn't respond. I just stared at him. I wanted to understand what made him step into my life like he owned it. "Did you know she was married?" "Yes." His honesty hit harder than a lie would. He didn't even try to hide it. "And you didn't care." He sighed. "It wasn't supposed to go this far. We didn't plan for it to. No one plans to destroy a family," I said. "But you still did." He looked away. I saw shame on his face, but it was shallow shame. The kind that comes from getting caught, not from genuine remorse. He wasn't sorry for the affair. He was sorry for the consequences. "Do you love her?" The question came out colder than I expected. He hesitated. Too long. I thought I did. I let that sit for a moment. I wanted him to feel the weight of those words, to understand that while he was playing with emotions like a hobby, my entire life was collapsing. You don't, I said. Because if you did, you wouldn't have let her lie to her son every day. You wouldn't have let her tear our marriage apart. You wouldn't have encouraged her to live two lives. His jaw clenched. He tried to look strong. He failed. Look, he said softly, I'm not proud of what happened. I stepped closer. He shrank back. You're not proud, I repeated. But you were comfortable. Comfortable sneaking around. Comfortable hiding in the shadows. Comfortable taking what wasn't yours. He didn't respond. He didn't need to. His silence told the whole story. After a long moment, I said the only thing that mattered, stay away from my family. He nodded quickly. I will. I swear. Good, I said. Because if you don't, I won't come back here to talk. He swallowed hard. He understood. I turned and walked away without looking back. And as I walked, I felt nothing. No victory. No satisfaction. Just the cold realization that confronting him didn't give me closure. It didn't fix anything. It didn't undo the damage. The wound was still there, raw and gaping. When I returned home, Emily was sitting on the couch, staring at the door with red, swollen eyes like she'd been waiting hours. She stood when I entered, hope flickering desperately across her face. Where did you go? She asked shakily. To clean up your mess, I said. One piece of it, at least. Fear washed over her expression. What did you do? Nothing, I said. But I should have never had to do anything. She opened her mouth to respond, but I wasn't finished. You created this. You broke this. You walked away from me long before I walked away from you. She cried again, begging, pleading, promising things she could no longer offer. But it was too late. Her words were just echoes now. Empty noises in a house built on ruins. That night, I slept in the guest room again. She sat outside the door for nearly an hour, whispering apologies I no longer believed, knocking softly like a penitent child. I didn't open the door. I couldn't. And as I lay there, staring at the ceiling, I realized the truth with painful clarity. This was only the beginning of the fallout. The real explosion, the one that would tear our lives apart, was still coming. And nothing could stop it now.